These prisons are wild. Let's see what's the most dangerous, shall we? I'm your host Yusuf, and these are the top 10 most dangerous prisons in the world. Make sure you like and subscribe to get notified whenever we upload a new video. Anyways, let's get incarcerated. At number 10, Sharjah Reformatory and Punitive Establishment in Dubai. Brigadier General Ahmed Abdulaziz Juhail, director of Sharjah's Punitive and Correctional Institution, affirms that the UAE's punitive and correctional institutions respect human rights pertaining to freedom of belief and opinion, healthcare services, and equality. He added that the institution's headquarters comprises a human rights office affiliated to the office of the Deputy Commander-in-Chief of Sharjah Police, who is mandated with ensuring prisoners' human rights are protected. In an exclusive interview with the Emirates news agency, WAM, Brigadier General Juhail said, "As part of the Directorate General of Punitive and Correctional Establishments at the Ministry of Interior, we seek to achieve several goals, starting with implementing the penalties set forth by legislators and the reform process, and ending with the prisoner's return to his normal life as a productive member of society." The prisoners have some other things to say, but they were silenced by the media. Number 9, White Swan in Russia. We've covered this one a lot, but just in case if you don't know, White Swan was founded in 1938 as a penal colony by the Soviet Union to hold political prisoners, particularly priests, but was eventually used for common criminals as well. In 1955, a special decree of the CPSU Central Committee changed the colony to correct the so-called thieves in law, and the main task of the prison was the total isolation and closure of all methods of communication between prisoners and the outside world. The Soviet authorities began to staff White Swan with some of the highest quality correctional officers in the country to control the thieves in law, in order to be able to withstand the bribes and intimidation they would be subject to. In 1999, White Swan was repurposed to house serious criminals serving life sentences, and unlike previous detainees, were not expected to ever leave the facility. The prison has roughly 300 inmates, 1/3 of its maximum capacity, held in cells of 1, 2, or 3 people. All cells have a dossier containing photos, articles, and a brief biography of the detainees. White Swan was the first prison in Russia to feature an on-site professional psychologist, and the administration, after studying the prisoners, settles them based on psychological compatibility in order to avoid conflicts. The conditions of the prison supposedly correspond to the requirements of international standards, with a library, correspondence materials, a commissary, a weekly shower, and an hour-long walk per day. During White Swan's entire existence, there have been no confirmed escapes. At number 8, Abashiri Prison in Japan. Constructed in 1890, this prison was a staple in the culture back in 1965 for a film that came out that year entitled Abashiri Prison, which detailed fictional stories from the very real prison. In April 1890, the Meiji government sent over 1,000 political prisoners to the isolated Abashiri village and forced them to build roads linking it to the more populous south. Initial conditions were extremely harsh, with insufficient food and rest, and over 200 prisoners passed away from malnutrition, accidents, and as punishment for attempting to escape. Abashiri Prison later became known for being a self-sufficient farming prison, and was cited as a model for others throughout Japan. The prisoners who were held there included politicians, activists, spies for the Soviet army, and former Yakuza. The prison now has a museum dedicated to the legacy of the prison and its notable prisoners, and is the only prison museum in Japan. Number 7, Kamiti Maximum Security Prison in Kenya. Kenya is notorious for tough conditions in its prisons, and Kamiti Maximum Security Prison, located in Roysambu constituency, is widely regarded as the worst. It was built in 1954 by the British and modeled after an old-style colonial system to house offenders during a state of emergency declared in October 1952. Kamiti still has its original gallows, though the last execution there was in 1987. It is notoriously overcrowded and the conditions are unsanitary. The prison's official capacity is 1,200, though reports suggest there are between 1,800 and 2,500 inmates crammed inside. Serious health conditions including HIV and AIDS, gonorrhea, syphilis, tuberculosis, and dysentery are rampant. Though Kamiti was already well known for housing political prisoners in executions by hanging, its infamy grew in 2008 when a riot, sparked by a contraband search, was captured on cell phone and shown on television. It also made headlines again in 2021 when 3 convicted terror suspects escaped. 7 wardens were later arrested for helping aid their escape. Number 6, Terre Haute in Indiana. This prison complex in Indiana consists of maximum security, medium security, and low security units. Nicknamed Guantanamo North, the ACLU accused Terre Haute in 2008 of having grossly inadequate conditions at its special confinement unit, where demise row inmates are held. It accused the prison of denying the prisoners medical care and mental health services and said they were subjected to so much noise that it caused them sleep deprivation. In January 2021, Terre Haute had the highest number of infection cases in the federal prison system, including inmates on demise row. Federal executions at Terre Haute had been on pause since U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland announced July 1st, 2021 that the Department of Justice would review its policy on capital punishment. This was after the Trump administration carried out 13 federal executions just months before the end of Trump's term, including the execution of Lisa Montgomery by lethal injection January 12, 2021. Montgomery was the first woman put to execution by the US in 67 years. Still, 46 men remain on demise row at Terre Haute, including Dylan Roof, who was sentenced to execution for federal hate crimes for ending 9 church parishioners in Charleston, South Carolina in 2015. At number 5, San Quentin in California. The oldest prison in California, San Quentin is notoriously known for its violence. It has been home to many infamous criminals, including Charles Manson, Scott Peterson, Sirhan Sirhan, who assassinated Robert F. Kennedy, by the way, and break here, the Kennedys really can't catch a break. Seriously, go check out their unlucky streak for yourself. In early 2022, the state started the process of closing the demise row at San Quentin and relocating the inmates somewhere else, 3 years after the California governor ended executions in the state. Over the years, and particularly in the 1960s and 70s, San Quentin earned a reputation for corruption and interracial riots that were encouraged by the guards. Number 4, Mendoza Prison in Argentina. With a population roughly 3 times its capacity, meaning severe overcrowding, Mendoza Prison in Argentina is really just as bad as it sounds. As many as 5 inmates are crowded into cells that measure only 43 square feet or 4 square meters, and many inmates are forced to sleep on the cold stone floor without mattresses. Amnesty International reported on the conditions back in 2005, alerting that people imprisoned in Mendoza are in such a desperate situation that they have gone as far as to sew their mouths up in demand of better living conditions. That's a pretty weird way to protest, considering you kind of need your mouth to ask for better conditions, but that's just me. The conditions at that time were so dire they included torture and in some cases even the removal of inmates. Prisoners had inadequate medical care and the prison lacked a proper sewage system, forcing inmates no other choice but to use plastic bags and bottles as their washrooms. That's gross, dude. Number 3, Carandiru Penitentiary in Brazil. Officially, Sao Paulo's House of Detention was a prison located in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The prison was designed and built by Samuel das Neves in 1920, when it was considered a model prison to meet the new demands of the 1890 Criminal Code. It was operational from 1956 to 2002 and, at its peak, was South America's largest penitentiary, housing over 8,000 inmates. In 1992, it was the site of the Carandiru Massacre. The Carandiru Massacre occurred on Friday the 2nd of October 1992 in Carandiru Penitentiary in Sao Paulo, Brazil, when military police stormed the penitentiary following a prison riot. The massacre, which left 111 prisoners deceased, is considered by many people to be a major human rights violation. Number 2, we have Cellular Jail, also known as Kalapani in India. This prison is notorious for terrible conditions for the inmates. Reportedly, prisons could face torture, medical tests, forced labor, and for many, execution. The inmates have tried to go on hunger strikes to protest the terrible conditions, however, the guards began force-feeding them anyways.
He was handcuffed and kept standing for 7 days because a note from another prisoner was found in his cell.
The prison is located in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and being sent here is the equivalent to a living execution. If a prisoner were to complain, they'd be subject to extreme torture methods. One of them being that they'd be forced to wear a coarse clothing that was rough on their skin and scratch their skin for 3 months. Many escapes were attempted, but prisoner 12819, Maytab, and prisoner 10817, Choi Tun, came the closest to succeeding. According to The Guardian, they stole away from the islands on March 26, 1872, rowing out into the Bay of Bengal on homemade rafts across a 750-mile stretch of turbulent water. Dodging schools of bounty hunters who fought over 250 rupee rewards, then it was 25 British pounds, picked up by a British vessel, they persuaded the crew that they were shipwrecked fishermen and eventually pitched up, free, at the Strangers' Home for Asiatics in London. The two were fed, clothed, and given a bed. But while they slept, Colonel Hughes, the home's proprietor, took photographs that were circulated around the empire. One morning, Maytab and Choi Tun awoke to find themselves shackled and frog-marched aboard a ship bound for India. Number 1. Black Dolphin Prison. Black Dolphin Prison is a correctional facility in Sol-Iletsk, Orenburg Oblast, Russia, near its border with Kazakhstan. The prison houses approximately 700 of Russia's worst and deadliest criminals. Prisoners at Black Dolphin are all serving sentences of life imprisonment. The prison began accepting these inmates on the 1st of November 2000.
The most severe offenders in the nation, including terrorists, cannibals, and serial are kept at the maximum security Black Dolphin Jail.
Inmates are kept isolated and housed in cells that have a set of 3 steel doors. For 90 minutes a day, they exercise in a large cage, and during this time, cells are searched for contraband or illegal items. Inmates are also under 24-hour surveillance and supervision. They are not permitted to rest or sit on their bunks from the time they awake until bedtime. Thanks for watching. Leave a like and comment if you enjoyed this video, and we will see you next time on Crime Time, baby!